Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. Have you ever wanted to be a farmer? Today, we'll talk about a farmer training program that's right here in Memphis. Also, insect pests are coming out. We'll learn what to do to keep them from eating your favorite plants. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mary Phillips. Mary is the Program Director of Roots Memphis. And Mr. D is here.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, Mary. Roots Memphis.
Yes.
I'm curious to know what that's all about. Could you enlighten us, please?
Yes, thanks. Roots Memphis is a farmer training program right here in Memphis, but we train farmers in smaller scale sustainable agriculture. So our program has 3 parts, what we call business, incubation, and then launch. We take people who think that they want to be farmers.
Okay.
Train them in a 6-month intensive business planning course. Wow. If they complete a business plan, we transfer them into the incubation part of our program where we start out small, give them a 1/4 acre plot where they follow their business plan. And if they have 3 years to show us 2 years of profitability. And if they can show us 2 years of profitability, we help them launch their business by providing them with branding and marketing services, with legal help, access to financing, access to land, whatever they need in order to be a full-time farmer.
Wow, pretty impressive.
It is.
Hey, man, really intensive program.
It is.
So let's look at some statistics here. So the average farmer is
67 years old in Tennessee.
in Tennessee.
And that age is increasing. So it's if we would like to continue eating in the future, we need to continue training new farmers. And especially in Memphis, our city doesn't have the same kind of access to like fresh fruits and vegetables that other cities have better access to. So our farmers are focused on mainly the fresh, chemical-free produce.
Wow, sounds pretty good. And Mr. D, of course, knows a lot about farming here. So
Yes.
yeah, this sounds like a real good program, though.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of farmers in my career, 32 years, and like you said, the average farmer, you're not the typical farmer,
No.
the average farmer, and I was going to guess 58 to 60. You say it's 68 now?
67, according to
67 years old.
the UT,
Yeah, UT
Extension Service.
That's pretty alarming because that's a source of worry for
Yes,
me.
yes.
We've got to have some young folks
Yes.
involved.
So how do people get interested? I mean, how do they sign up, to become part of Roots Memphis?
Right. A lot of people hear about us a lot of different ways, through word of mouth, through social media, through some of our other media outreach events. And people come to our program with a lot of different interests. Some people have started a career and have thought, I can't spend another day sitting in front of a computer screen. We have people that come to us who have started some college classes but think, maybe this path isn't quite for me. We have some people who've always known that they want to be farmers, but they end up finding us, and it's great. Everybody who comes through our program ends up saying, like, I've wanted something like what you're doing, and thank you. I didn't know it existed. So. We take people that either have known early on or figured out later that really being outside, being their own boss, working in the fresh air, working in something that's not only productive and useful, but like a benefit to our city and kind of the surrounding county is something that they really have a passion for. So it's really a privilege to get to help them put that to use.
Wow, that's a good deal. So how many students do you take at a time?
We do up to 10 per class. Just
10
we
per
want
class.
very specialized services for our students. We've moved 9 farmers on now from our business planning into incubation.
Okay.
We're a new program, so this coming year will be the last year in incubation for some of our farmers, and we'll work on helping them launch after that.
Okay, so you started Roots Memphis when? When
We
did you
started
start the
it
program?
in 2012, and Roots Memphis started out as an urban farm in Whitehaven. And I began thinking, like, if I can make some money off of an empty lot in the city, surely I can help teach other people how to do the same thing. We have plenty of land kind of in the city and surrounding areas, and we have plenty of people who need work, who want something different, who want to make a positive impact in Memphis by working outside, working with their hands. So it just all seemed to make sense.
Wow, so somebody that has no background in farming can actually
Yes.
take this course and
You
be
learn
on their
from the
way
ground
to
up. Yes.
producing
Yeah.
veggies. Okay.
And flowers.
And flowers.
So
okay,
we do
you
that
flowers
too.
as well. Okay. So what happens to the vegetables and the flowers then, after they
Right.
grow it?
So we have a large CSA, and CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And these are, through a CSA program, folks sign up at the beginning of the season, they become members of the farm, and then during the growing season, which for us starts April 25th this year, if the ground ever dries out, it'll start
Yeah.
April 25th.
Yes.
And our CSA members get weekly bags of whatever is coming out of the farm. So it's in the springtime, it's your leafy greens and your root vegetables. In the summertime, it's your tomatoes and basil and eggplant and melons and that kind of thing. And we also we distribute flowers in a similar way. And we also we're working with some farmers markets as well as local restaurants to further distribute the produce and flowers.
So do they specifically grow out of the land that you have at Whitehaven, or are they at Shelby Farms, or where are they
Yes.
located?
So while the program started out as just an old parking lot and an idea in Whitehaven, we have now grown and are continuing to grow. And we now partner with Shelby Farms Park Conservancy. And we have 10 acres out there and a greenhouse. And we are just growing rampantly out there, and it's great.
Wow, that's pretty good. 10 acres.
10 acres out there.
Okay. Now let me ask you this while we have a little time left. So why Roots Memphis? What got you started? I'm curious to know.
I've always been interested in sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
When I was in high school, went and lived and worked on a farm in Kansas just because I was interested, and I got the bug. I was passionate about it, and now I work my dream job with Roots Memphis because I always wondered throughout, I started getting interested in agriculture in high school, and that has stuck with me since then throughout college and graduation, and I've been able to work on farms. But I always thought I really love education and I love teaching, and I always felt this internal struggle of what am I going to do? Am I going to teach or am I going to farm? And now I have, I feel like the luckiest person in the world because I have the opportunity to do both every day, and I love it.
All right, Mary. Well, we appreciate that information. Glad
Thank
you could be with us
It's
today.
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you.
All right, Mr. D, let's talk about controlling those insects. So, dormant oil and spraying. So what should we be doing? Because those insects are going to come.
Yeah, now is the time to use dormant oils.
Okay.
And you need to do it pretty quickly. And what the dormant oils will do is you can use them until bud break on your fruit trees, and it's very kind of thick oil. It's thicker than the summer oils. It's more persistent. You can put it out there, and it's really good at controlling a lot of the soft-bodied insects like aphids and some of the scale insects and some caterpillars even. And the way it operates, it simply suffocates the insects. It clogs their breathing spiracles, the little breathing tubes that they have, and that's the way it kills the insects. So I don't know whether it's considered organic or not, but I would say that you might get away with using oils and still consider it organic. But it should reduce the amount of pesticides that you would have to apply for the fruits that require, in my opinion, pesticides.
Right. agree with that.
by taking some of them out early. It also has some, kills some eggs that, if you happen to put the oil over an egg mass, it interferes with the hatching of the eggs, and so that helps also.
Okay. So I guess you had to get good coverage.
It's important to have good coverage. It's very important to have good coverage. And I would probably go on out there. I would do that before I pruned, and it's time to prune now too, but I would probably go on out there and spray everything and then go on in and prune it after that. After bud break, and prior to blooming, you can go with the summer oils, a lighter oil, if you want to do that again, to try to reduce the amount of insect pressure that you'll have later on, maybe.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So for fruit trees, can you spray dormant oil on your fruit trees?
Yes, that's what I'm primarily talking
okay.
about. Fruits, apples, pears, peaches, plums, nectarines, things like that. That's primarily what I'm talking about.
Okay, because I know, some of the folks at the garden centers, of course, recommend using the dormant oil for your ornamental plantings.
I'm sure that would be okay for the same reasons.
Yeah. Okay. So what are some insects we need to really be looking out for, though, for the most part?
Well, like I said, what we were trying to reach are insect eggs.
Right.
I can give you an example of one that's about to pop out here. If you have a crab apple tree or wild cherry trees, the eastern tent caterpillar is about to pop out here. And if you can cover that egg mass with a good dormant oil, then you should interfere with a number of eastern tent caterpillars that come out. But aphids overwinter in the bark of trees. Some of the aphid eggs will overwinter. A lot of insects' eggs are laid under the bark or in the bark, and they, if they've been able to survive the freezing temperatures and the ice and snow, maybe the dormant oil will take them on out. But,
which leads me to this question. So we've had a winter, a real winter. Will that have any effect on any of the insect pests, you think? Because I've gotten that question a time or two.
I've never seen it have much of an effect. And you can, if you don't believe me, go to Canada or Alaska in the summertime. And the insects are all over the place up there. The mosquitoes are huge, and so I doubt very seriously. Sure, it's going to kill some, but insects are pretty adaptable, and they have the ability to survive even under bad, cold winter conditions.
Yeah, so probably not that much of an effect.
I wouldn't count on it. Don't count on it.
Okay. What about on your fire ants?
Fire ants, this year we may actually have pushed the line back. We got single digits up in my neck of the woods, up in Lauderdale County. You may actually have pushed that line of fire ants back to the south a little bit. They'll come back. They'll move back north. But the hybrid fire ants that we have, they're a cross between the red fire ant and the black fire ant, Solenopsis invicta and Solenopsis richteri. It's a cross between those two, and they are actually more cold hardy than either the black or the red. They have that hybrid vigor, and makes them a little more able to withstand cold temperatures. But when the ground freezes, if it'll freeze down to 12 inches, it's going to take that mound out, And I don't know how deep the ground froze this year. It probably didn't freeze to 12 inches.
No.
It probably didn't stay it didn't stay cold long enough. But it might help us with fire ants a little bit.
So back to the dormant oil. So I guess we just mix that, of course, according to the label.
Follow the label
mix it with water, I guess.
Right.
You have to agitate it a little bit, I'm sure. And
just shake it up and agitate, and make sure you get good coverage. And it's one of the insecticides that you won't actually see any benefit. I mean, as far as with your eyes, but you put it out there, and it's doing some damage to the insects that you don't really see. If you see scale insects, now if you see white peach scale or some of the scale insects that show up, you can actually see, with your eyes, you can see the damage that the oil does to those insects.
Okay.
And soon, very soon, I mean, we're going to start to see aphids, and things are going to start hatching out very quickly.
You're right. Just like we're sitting around waiting on spring, but so are they.
That's right.
Yeah, so they're going to be right behind in numbers for the most part.
Exactly right.
Wow. The insect world is, I'm always curious about,
they're pretty tough critters.
Know when to come out and when to multiply and all that kind of good stuff.
Pretty tough critters.
They're pretty tough. And I know the scales, and you know about the crepe myrtle bark scale. I wonder if the winter had any effect on them.
I wouldn't count on it. I really wouldn't. I mean, we've had a tough winter this year, but But like I said, in my career, I can't think of an insect that's really been hurt really bad by cold winter temperatures. Now, you'll see years that some insects will be more of a problem than they've normally been. I can think of 2 or 3 insects that had explosions, and I've only seen that insect like once in my lifetime at real high numbers. A cigar case bearer down in Grand Bay, Alabama, one year completely covered all of the pecan trees that weren't in a managed orchard. And then I saw Oclocanium scale at just unbelievable numbers one year when I lived down in Mobile. And I don't know what triggered that. I don't think a cold winter had anything to do with that down there.
Right.
I've not seen anything like that. I haven't seen a phenomena like that since I've been here in Tennessee. But I did say I have, some years the Oclocanium in the early spring is a lot worse than other years.
Yeah, it sure is.
And I don't know whether that correlates to how severe the winter was or not. I doubt it.
Okay. How about this? How do you pick a dormant oil? There's a bunch of dormant oil sprays there at these garden centers, nurseries. So
just look at a dormant oil. Probably they're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, I would think so.
They probably have pretty much the same concentration, and I would just make sure the most important thing is to make sure you use dormant oils during the wintertime.
Right.
When the trees or plants are dormant. And then use the summer oils or the superior oils in the summertime. You don't want. You can get away with using the summer oil or superior oil in the wintertime, but you can't get away with using the dormant oil in the summertime. If you use Volk oil in the summertime, you're going to do some damage to the plants you put in.
All right, thanks, Mr. D. We appreciate that information. We love to hear from you. Send us a letter or an email with your gardening questions. Send your email to familyplot@wkno.org. The mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. All right, this is our Q&A session. And Mary, you jump in there with us if you have a comment.
All right.
Okay, here's our first question. Do certain vegetables do better at a certain pH?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yes.
Yes, he says.
As far as I know, all vegetables do best at a high pH, pH of between 5.8 and 6. That's ideal pH for vegetables. The only thing I can think of offhand that doesn't need a high pH are blueberries and azaleas. And but in your vegetable garden, corn, peas, the legumes, all the legumes like a high pH. So don't guess, soil test.
And we have those available in our office.
Check it
Come by
out.
and get one. The best $7 investment of your money, that's for sure.
And lime according to soil test recommendations, because you can put too much lime out.
Yes.
And a word of caution, if you have a fireplace or a wood-burning stove and you routinely scatter ashes over your garden spot, ashes are extremely high in calcium and they are a good liming material, but if you do it the same amount every year and continue to do it, you can reach a high pH. And if you get the pH up to 7.5 or 8, then you've got real problems, and it's really hard to lower the pH. You have to add elemental sulfur to lower the pH. So don't guess. Again, soil test and put out the liming material, according to those recommendations.
Okay, Mary, any comments from you?
That sounded great.
Yep, so don't guess, soil tests. There you have it. Here's our next question. You mentioned using a pre-emerge in your vegetable garden. Is there one that you specifically recommend? And this is something that we talked about on the last couple of episodes. Preen has an organic product that you can now use. The active ingredient is corn gluten, which is a natural byproduct of the corn milling process. Okay, so corn gluten actually has properties in it that will inhibit the formation of roots. So it contains amino acids, and these amino acids inhibit secondary roots. So no roots, no shoots, no weed. But what you're gonna have to do is follow the label, okay? Because if you're seeding a garden, see, Preen is not going to know the difference between the seed of your vegetable or flowers and the seed of a weed. So you have to make sure that your vegetables, your flowers are already established. And we're talking at least 2 to 3 inches, in height, true leaves, okay? Then you can put your, preen down. And again, it's, organic preen for vegetable gardens. So corn gluten is the active ingredient.
So that's probably the only one that I know of that you can use for any vegetable.
It says any vegetable.
Any vegetable.
I've
All of the other
it.
ones, the other ones of inorganic nature. Treflan you can use on beans and peas and things like that, but you can't use it on corn.
Right. Yeah.
And there are others that you can use on post. You can use on corn and those kind of things, but you can't use, or the other way around. You can use post over the beans, but you can't use it on corn. So that's a new one for me.
Yes, a new one
it's
the
in
homeowners.
the UT publication. Yeah. It's in the UT publication.
But this is definitely new for the homeowners. I got a chance to talk to the young lady who actually helped put this product out, and we talked. And I know about the corn gluten because it's actually used as a pre-emergent lawns, to fight off weed seeds. So now there's an organic preen for your vegetable garden.
I'd like to see how it works. I'd really like to see it in some
Yeah, you put it out. Of course, it has to be activated by water. So you water it in and let Mother Nature do it for you. And it forms that, that thin barrier right there at the soil surface. So when those weed seeds germinate, they hit that barrier.
I guess we should have known gluten's supposed to be bad for us. So if it's bad for us, it's bad for insects, right?
It's bad for weed seeds too.
Weeds, and it may kill insects too.
Yeah.
We need to check that out. Yeah.
All right, here's our next question. Do I need to plant 2 peach trees near each other for maximum? He's already shaking his head, man. He's already shaking his head. I think there's our answer.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
Because peaches are self-fruitful. They self-pollinate, and so there's no need to plant more than 1 peach tree. Apples, on the other hand, require cross-pollination. Pears require cross-pollination. Plums, most plums, I think I can only think of 1 variety that doesn't require cross-pollination. But peaches and nectarines are self-fruitful, and you don't have to worry about planting more than 1.
So you don't have to worry about it.
That's right. They're self-fruitful.
Self-fruitful. What about grapes?
Grapes,
Like
muscadine types, there are 2 types. There are female types, which require cross-pollination. They require another plant to cross-pollinate them. And then there are the perfect flowered types. So you have 2 types. You don't have males and females. You have females, and then you have the perfect flowered ones, which have male and female parts on the plant. So you have to have a perfect flowered one to cross-pollinate the female ones. But if you just have the perfect flowered ones, you're fine.
You'll be fine.
So it's not that simple.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Here's our last question. What are these things growing on my arborvitae? And these are the things that you're talking about. How about that?
Aren't they cute? Yeah. Cute little bagworms. And right now, those things are full of eggs.
Yeah.
So what they've done with them is really a good thing to do right now. Pick them off.
Yeah.
And put them in a plastic bag, burn them, do something. Don't just pick them off and throw them on the ground because they can still hatch. But around the 1st of May, those eggs will hatch and the critters will chew their way out of there, and there'll be a little bitty tiny caterpillar, and they'll start crawling around feeding, and they'll have a little bitty tiny bag attached to them. And as they feed on the plant, they grow and the bag grows. They actually build more, make the bag larger, make it large enough that they can get inside it. And if you leave those on the plant, you're going to have a problem in May, and then you're talking about needing to spray with an insecticide. Malathion is the only one I know of. There are several that will do the trick. Malathion comes to mind first. In May, and you'll be actually needing to spray before you even see the bagworm, because you won't see the damage, and you won't see the critters when they're only like 1/4 of an inch long. But if you wait until June or July, they're already going to be that big, and when you spray, they see you coming and they hide in their cocoon, and the insecticide won't penetrate it, and it's pretty much impossible to kill them with insecticide once they're already, you have a large bag, and they can actually defoliate plants. I've seen them completely defoliate plants.
I've seen it.
And they can really be a problem.
All right, there you have it, bagworms.
Bagworm.
Pick them off.
That's right. Pick them off, stomp them, burn them, put them in a bag, and
That'll do it.
send them to the landfill.
All right. Well, Mary, appreciate you being here
Thank
today.
you so much.
Thank you, Mr. D.
Enjoyed it.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.